Thank you, Mr. Reed, and I'm grateful for the endorsement of the Tea Party of Louisiana and all the help and support that y'all are giving to this campaign. I know this is about my contract with Louisiana tour, but before we get started, I want to say something about the events that have occurred the last few days in the greatest nation in the world, the United States of America. And as we speak, the President of the United States is landing in Orlando, Florida. And it's my great hope that he doesn't make his third knuckleheaded public utterances that are called speeches about the events that occurred in Orlando, Florida the other night. Because this man doesn't appear to be a commander-in-chief, he's a divider-in-chief. A commander-in-chief would have said this was an act of war by the Islamic State, period, end of story, and focused the nation on the enemy of the United States of America and Western ideals. A commander-in-chief would have said, we will identify, find, target, and kill all Islamic State jihadis in our country and around the world as rapidly as possible. A leader would have said, I'm calling on Congress to immediately reconvene to enact a declaration of war against the Islamic State and focus this nation on what really needs to occur after we've been fighting Islamic jihadis for 15 years and we are not winning. A leader would have said, instead of dividing the people that were the unfortunate and tragic casualties of this attack, both the dead and the wounded and their families, into a group, regardless of their lifestyle or race or religious beliefs, he would have said, this is an attack on all Americans. Because I don't remember when I went into combat looking over my shoulder to see who was behind me or who was beside me to complete the mission that the United States of America ever assigned us, and when I risked my life for the Constitution of the United States. We are all Americans. Stop trying to divide us over petty political correctness and political ideas, because they're petty and they're policies that have been rejected by the American people already, especially the new attacks on the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So I'm grateful for my country today. I pray for the casualties and their families of those great Americans that lost their lives the other day. And I pray for this country that we will finally get leaders that will actually say what the enemy is that's fighting a war against the United States of America. Because until we do that, we cannot defeat them, and we must defeat them or our way of life is in grave jeopardy today. So, I'm retired Colonel of the United States Air Force, Rob Maness, and I'm running for the United States Senate this year. And we started our contract with Louisiana tour yesterday down in Houma, and today we're here in Baton Rouge. And I just want to say, to add to what Bob said, that for far too long the politicians in Washington, D.C. have forgotten about the very people who put them there in the first place. That's why I'm announcing this set of principles, and that's what they are, principles that I pledge to uphold to the people of Louisiana that I'm asking to put me in this office as their next United States Senator. This contract truly represents the heart of my campaign for change in Washington. And if I don't live up to these pledges as your senator, I want you all to hold me accountable and fire me or call me home. And I will listen if that's necessary. But it won't be necessary. As your senator, I'll always remember that I work for you, the people, and this is my pledge to you. Number one, I will always preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And while this seems like it should be obvious and that every man and woman that takes this office takes an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, unfortunately we even have presidents that try to attack the Constitution for political purposes, even in the face of great tragedy like we've seen in Orlando, Florida the last few days. Number two, I'll always put the people of Louisiana above lobbyists, special interests, and political parties. I'll be a senator for the people, not for the powerful. I'll live in Louisiana and not Washington, D.C. I'll be transparent in every vote, and I'll explain it on my Facebook page. I'll visit all of Louisiana's 64 parishes every year that I'm in office, and believe me, I've done that before, and I know what that means to say that. I'll never vote for a bill that I do not read, and I'll sponsor legislation that requires Congress to read bills before passing them into law. And this is a contemporary issue that we faced in the last few weeks. Senator Rand Paul stopped a bill from being voted on in the U.S. Senate just a few weeks ago because he hadn't had a chance to read it, and neither had anybody else. The people we send to Washington that should do their job, and part of it is reading the bills before we vote on them. I won't become a career politician. I'll limit myself to 2 terms in the Senate, and I'll sponsor and champion term limits legislation during my time there, and I'm the only candidate that's not served in Washington that has signed the U.S. Term Limits Pledge, limiting congressional terms to 3 and U.S. Senate terms to 2 in this race. I will not kowtow to political correctness. I will always tell the truth as I see it. And just as I iterated at the beginning of my remarks when I said the President had made 2 knuckleheaded speeches, I sincerely mean that, Mr. President, and you should take those pieces of feedback to heart. I will not spend more of it than 80% of my budget, and I'll try to spend less than that for my office, and anything that's left over will be returned to the Treasury of the United States every year. I'll live by the laws that Congress passes for others, and Congress should never exempt themselves from the requirements that they impose on the people of the United States. I will never ask you to put your faith in me. Put your faith, like I do, in God Almighty, not politicians. I'll ask for your prayers, though, for me and my family and for our great nation and our great state, so we can restore the principles of the Republic and the Constitution of the United States and get it back to working for us, the people who are supposed to hold the power in this nation. And finally, while you may not always agree with me, here's the one political promise I will make in this campaign, and that is if I tell you I will do something on the campaign trail when I get to Washington, D.C., I will do it. You can take it to the bank. I've worked with people across the world for the last 32 and a half years in the military and last few years in the utility industry, and every one of them will tell you, whether they agree with me or not, if Rob Maness said that he's going to do something, then he will do it, and he is a man that keeps his word.
What's your position on the border wall between the United States and South America?
The places where we have already completed our wall, that has already been funded by Congress from the 1996 bill, have been affected, and we measure that effectiveness, and where it's been completed and it's properly secured by personnel, those have been effective areas. So I think we should complete the job. We haven't done that the 1996 appropriation did, so we can measure that. But it's not just going to be a wall. We need to increase our levels of technology that are out there, and we need to have good border security personnel policy. Right now, our border guards are stationed 35 miles north of the border. That is much too wide of a corridor to be catching people that are illegally coming into this country, whether they're coming here to get a job or whether they're coming here to do something bad to the American people, which is likely. In my experience as a commander in the American Southwest, we watched for that all the time, and I've actually secured a border. I commanded the 6th largest Air Force base in the world out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and most of our fence line, our border line was unfenced. It was 53,000 acres, and that border was within 3 days walking distance of the U.S.-Mexico border, and I've never had an illegal alien come into my 53,000 acres.
What about the issue of as I understand it, the President could suspend all immigration from Muslim countries if he chose to do so. Now, assuming that the next President we have doesn't do that, is there anything the Senate can do that would alleviate this situation, or can you see yourself playing any role in stopping this? Yes,
the Senate can withdraw funding from that area of that agency that controls refugee flow and immigration policy. And you can get it all the way down to the specific program line item and remove the funding for that, and that will stop. And we can write into the budget legislation that no funding can be moved from other areas into that specific line item. So that's how the Senate can do it. We just have to have the political will and the courage and people from outside of the partisan politics world to go up there and apply a little bit of leadership and show a little bit of courage and stand up for the American people.